welcome. I am here today with Renee. She is a client who we have gotten to know much better as she's been here in France over the past 10 months? 9 months?
10 months.
10 months? Okay. So she moved here from California. She moved her business along with her, just like I did. Yep. And brought her sweet Italian Greyhound, right? Did I have that right? Yeah, Paulo with her. Yep. And we wanted to talk to her today because she's doing something that many of you talk to us about doing in consults, which is traveling throughout France the first year you're here to really find a place that you want to settle that feels like the place. And she's been doing that.
Yes.
And she has the I don't want to call them war stories. That's wrong. But it's been an adventure.
Learning.
Yes. And I think like the beauty of talking about these is that it can be both an adventure and there's just like anything else, there's like the highs and the lows.
Exactly.
The advice to pass on. So, okay. So first of all, do you want to just tell us briefly what about the dream of moving to France for you?
So for me, my great-grandparents immigrated to the U.S. from France.
Oh.
So I grew up, my mother's side of the family is French by heritage, but not close enough for me to just easily come here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I grew up with some of the cultural things of the French culture. Mm-hmm. Sunday lunches. Definitely a thing at my great-grandparents' house growing up.
Oh.
Hearing French as a child.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Although I just wish that they would have only spoken that to me and that my parents would have learned and done it, but they didn't. But there was just always this thing that my grandparents had this pride in their French identity. And they really tried to create that identity in their life in the US. And so I grew up feeling that attachment and feeling the appreciation for it and learning from my great-grandparents the appreciation for it. So I will tell you, and this will tell you a little bit about my personality. I announced to my kindergarten class that I was going to move to France.
Oh, wow.
And I made the decision that early in my life.
Wow.
I was that committed to doing it, even though at the time I doubt that I could have even located it on a map. So, I announced that. So, I've carried this as a lifelong dream my entire life.
Wow.
To the crazy extent that when I first met my husband, who's now deceased, one of the very first things that I asked him was, would he be willing to move to France? Because that was in my plan.
Wow.
And I needed him to be on board with that. So that's it was deeply ingrained in me to one day come here.
Yeah. So this was long-held dream.
Long-held dream.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You made it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how many places have you been over the past 10 months?
I have been, let's see, 6 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Will you name them off for us tonight?
I started out in Carcassonne, which is near Toulon.
Okay.
Down on the Mediterranean. I spent my first month there.
Okay.
Loved it. I chose that place just because I was coming from San Diego. It kind of had that kind of
smooth
relaxed
the bridge
feel near the water, So then I spent a week in, I think it's pronounced Sète. And because I needed a place to bridge a week between Airbnbs.
Yeah.
And then...
And Sète is a little more, it's closer to the Spanish border, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's the other side of Montpellier.
Okay.
Also on the water, you can see a theme. And
yes.
I love the water. And then I had decided to test myself from a video that you and Jason had posted about the village of Lausanne.
Oh, yeah. Sweet little place.
Yeah. So I went to Lausanne next, and I decided that that was going to be where I would spend 3 months. I knew I was going to need a period of time in one place because I was setting up my corporation here in France. That was going to take some effort.
Yes.
Lots of effort. And
but she did it.
yeah.
The key is finding the help of a good accountant, y'all.
It is, totally. And yeah, so I was in Lausanne for 3 months. Then, and when I left the US, I only had those like first 4 months planned out.
Okay.
Then I was leaving it kind of open how I would feel and what was important to me as I got closer.
Are you glad you did that, or was that stressful? You are.
No,
okay.
I am, because I inserted into my list Périgueux, just because of being in Lausanne, being a part of DLCI, the Dordogne Ladies Club, and going to the coffee. I went to one of the coffees and a luncheon in Périgueux and met some of the ladies in that, and went to Dave's Bookies bookstore.
Bookies!
Go there. It's amazing. It's just a wonderful group. That
we're going to interview Dave soon from Bookie, so you guys will finally meet him soon. Yes.
Absolutely must. Oh, I miss his chai lattes. Yeah. And so I inserted that, and then I was having such a great time there. I made my time there a little bit longer. I stayed there for about 7 weeks.
What was it that what was it, the people there, or was it the vibe?
It was totally the people.
Yeah.
You know, I got to make friendships there, and they would get together and do other things. One of the French ladies that goes to that group, Nadine, she was wonderful. She took 3 of us on an outing. One Saturday, we went to the little village that she had been born in and got to see the home of her grandparents, and it was just wonderful. Wonderful.
It's like an intimate French cultural experience.
It was. Yeah. It was. And it really, like, I felt connected, and I still feel connected, and I'm still in touch with all of those ladies. They're like, I'm giving them readouts on the places that I'm exploring, because they're like, so is Périgueux number 1?
I'll tell you at coffee, this comes up in conversation sometimes.
Yeah.
We're like, what do you think's in the lead for the place Renee's gonna pick?
Yeah.
But continue. Sorry. Okay, so then Périgueux. So you had a couple of months in Périgueux.
I did.
And then, or 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
And then
I went down to Surrey.
Okay.
And I had chosen Surrey basically because it was known as kind of an artist community.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It has history of the artists going there to paint, painters, writers.
It's a romantic idea of France in a way.
Kind of. And I had been experimenting a little bit with, obviously, size of place. Coming from a city of millions of people, knowing I wanted something smaller. Yeah. Testing myself with a 700-person village.
And she did it it was the winter, right?
In the winter.
So you do not get more, let's test if a small village is a good fit, than moving to 600 people in the winter.
In the winter.
Yeah.
Where the cafe is only open 3 days a week.
Yeah.
That's a test. That's a test. So I went to Surrey, had a grand adventure with an Airbnb in Surrey that left me feeling, it was a wonderful place, but feeling a little isolated.
Yeah.
Just because of where it was and how you had to get to it.
It was a bit of a hike, like literally to get to it, right? A literal hike
down a really narrow path down the side of a hill to get to this Airbnb.
Yeah.
None of which was in the write-up.
So this is definitely something, if you're going to an area that has a lot of elevation change, I would say this is something to actually investigate before you go, because this is actually more common than you would think, and it is often not advertised, and maybe it's no big deal to you, but like lugging groceries up a mountain every time you come home can get old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And and then thinking about, how I needed help from the owner to get down there. I needed to coordinate help
your
from
luggage.
him to move out.
Yeah.
My car then was being parked in public parking that was kind of down the street.
Yeah. Parking situations sometimes in places too is something to check.
Yes.
Don't assume parking comes with a place.
When the Airbnb says free parking, don't assume that's going to be on site.
Right. Oh my God, that's true. That's a great tip.
Don't assume
free parking a mile away.
Yeah, a mile away where you're going to be lugging your things.
Yeah.
And don't assume that parking is actually going to be available every day, because sometimes there's market day and you have to move your car.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So asking for like detailed information about the parking if you're going to do this migration through the year.
Yes.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Understand parking. Understand how many steps am I going to have to go up and or down between getting to from my car to the place.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Particularly, I'm on my own, and while I have a dog, he hauls nothing.
Yeah. I can imagine Paula with a little pack. Yeah.
Yeah. Not happening.
Okay. So Saray.
Saray.
Which was beautiful, but a bit isolating, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Just because of partly where you were located.
Yeah. But I've adventured out to different places. I went to Couloir, which is beautiful, but way too touristy.
Mm-hmm.
Arles-sur-Mer, I visited. Beautiful. But Paolo and the wind on that coast.
Yeah.
Italian greyhounds have those pointy ears, and he hates getting wind in his ears. So yeah, it's a thing.
These are the kind of little things that, I think is really beneficial to do these kind of trips, even though it can be a challenge, because you don't that might be one of those things you don't know till you get there.
Yeah, it's true. And I've had to overcome things in each place. Like Paolo's nails grow very, very fast. Mm-hmm. So I need to find the tutelage, the dog groomer in every place I'm going. I'm looking for one. So every 2 to 3 weeks I can get his nails trimmed. Yeah. But, Facebook groups in every single place, super important for finding that kind of stuff.
I agree. I'm not a huge Facebook fan, but I tell you, the local centered Facebook groups, it's like the network to find anything, honestly.
Anything.
Super helpful.
Yep. The first couple of days that I got to Saray, Paolo got some kind of stomach bug. He must have picked up something, eaten something I didn't know. And of course, the vet that I had him go to was up in this area. Yeah. Almost 7 hours away from Saray.
Right, that's not helping you in the moment.
So I messaged the Facebook group and asked, and within maybe 10 minutes, I had several replies and a consistent, the same vet being recommended. And he turned out literally to be steps from the top of the path.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So I was able to call and get him in the same day, and it was just easy. Yeah. It was very easy.
That's great. And I think that's really something we've noticed that pretty continually, that I think there's a lot of anxiety when you're in the US. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be able to find the services you need and the help you need? And I've found pretty consistently that it just usually isn't a problem.
Yeah. As long as you don't panic and ask for help.
Yeah. As
Americans, As Americans, we are
Help
not...
is a last resort to ask for help.
Yes.
I gotta do this on my own.
Exactly.
I'm gonna figure this
power
out.
my way through. I'm gonna be, super self-sufficient.
Right.
Like,
yes.
you've gotta...
This is so true.
It is such a growth experience. You've got to get over those things and ask for help, because help is typically always a moment away.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's funny that that's like a cultural contrast, because I notice that even out in public spaces, I feel like I'm approached more often by French people to ask for help for things that's like no big deal. Like, to reach something high on the shelf, like little French woman will ask Jason at the grocery store without hesitation. One time we're at the airport and a group asked us if we'd figured out the parking. Like I feel like Americans will work on it for 15 minutes before we think to ask the person behind us. Whereas I see that much. There's isn't that same resistance. I feel like sometimes with the French, which
I've been asked
it's
directions and but also in my moves when I've been lugging things to my car. I've had people come up and offer to help, and it's wonderful.
Lovely. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so we're at Soray, and then
Concermer.
Okay, this is just outside of Nice.
Yep, just outside, right down the road from Nice, and really getting back to, in San Diego, I had a condo overlooking San Diego Bay and the water, and
our first consult was there. I could see all your windows.
And the Airbnb that I had in Concermer was on the beach and had that view, and I was just like, oh, this feels like I miss the water and the sunshine, and and just kind of having a view. That really taught me that was going to be important to me in a permanent place. I need a place where I can have a view and
a sense of openness.
Yes.
So that's interesting. One thing I'm noticing you did is you tried a lot of different extreme. I don't know if extreme is the right, but a beautiful isolated French cottage, a little village house in a small village. Something similar to where you came from,
in a larger city,
right? In Périgueux, you were in an apartment, but
I was in a townhouse.
Oh, you were in a townhouse. Okay, but they were all very different experiences. So, do you think? Are you really glad that you did that?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Okay.
Because it's really helped me hone in what's important, what's truly important to me.
Yeah.
Just living in a French house or a French apartment, it's things are different than in the US. So, how is this, going to feel? And what are the things? I've had Airbnbs where the room that you took a shower had no heat in it in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Right.
And I've been in...
That was in a really ancient building too.
It was.
Ancient stone building, which was beautiful.
They are lovely to look at.
Notoriously cold.
Yeah. But you really have to think about...
How winterized are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How attached are you to your comfort?
Oh, this is...
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really real question. And it's not gosh, I don't know. I think we don't always like to admit to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because most of us have pretty comfortable lives in the US, right? With climate control and things are just easy.
Yes.
And
elevators.
Right?
Yeah.
That are just ubiquitous. They're everywhere.
Yep.
And I agree. I think it's you really have to decide do you want to live in a beautiful stone building that's going to make you happy when you walk up to it, but you may be cold at night, even if you have the heat on?
Yeah. I was looking at Airbnbs for some stays coming up, and I found this gorgeous Airbnb, and I was about to book it, and I paused because I was like, this one it's super nice. The pictures are super nice. And the rate was lower than everything else in that area. And I'm like, what is that? And then I really paid a little bit more closer attention.
Yeah.
And it was on the 5th floor of the building, and there was no elevator.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
Yeah.
those are like little details. So is there anything else that you've noticed that you've started to look for as you've booked places? Like, would you still use Airbnb? Have you been happy with that? What do you look for?
For what I'm doing and how I'm doing it for this first year, Airbnb has been great.
Okay. Simple.
I know that I'm paying more.
Yeah.
I'm paying a lot more.
Yeah.
Than if I went and did a direct rental.
Right.
But when I'm spending anywhere from a month to 6 weeks in a place, doing direct rentals are very difficult.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and
so it gives you some more flexibility.
It does.
Ease of booking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
you are
just know that you're
committed.
paying for that. Right.
Yeah, you are also somewhat committed. When you have things come up, I've had to make choices about staying in a place or not.
What do you mean?
Like when I booked 5 weeks in Concermare, and my integration days got scheduled.
Oh.
And
so when she says integration days, sorry, just to
Go ahead.
So if you're coming on a visitor visa, you know, we've talked about like you'll have to go for a medical visit. You'll get called to the prefecture just one time. But if you're on a business visa, like both of us are, you'll have the medical visit, and then you'll also have your integration days, which I loved. I talked about. Yeah, they're like,
fantastic.
you know, they're kind of like they teach you about rules and regulations in France and being a good citizen and the history and all these things. So there'll be 4 of them in total that you'll get called for, and you don't have a lot of control over when those are going to happen. So this is what she's talking about, is her 4, and you must do them to get your renewal. So they're super important, but I also really enjoyed them.
I love them. I've loved them so far. I've got 3 of them done, and I confirmed my 4th one this morning. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, yes. So I'm sorry. So back to you got called for those.
They're attached to the prefecture of the location that your visa is attached to when you validate it.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, that is La Garonne. So my prefecture days were in Agen.
Okay.
Which for those who haven't looked at a map of France is about a 7-hour drive from where I was in Concermare.
Yeah. And how long from so you were in Lausanne when you validated your visa, and that was in La Garonne, so Agen was the prefecture.
I validated my visa before I got to Lausanne. I validated it when I was in Carcassonne, but I validated it with the address that I was going to.
So this is another little trick, is that if you're going to be one place, so you got to validate within 90 days, right?
Yeah.
But if you know the second place you're going is where you're really going to be for a longer amount of time, hopefully then you get your letter, you get called. So you can use the validation address you use doesn't have to be the one you're physically at right then. Yeah. You could. I wouldn't do it too far in advance, because occasionally we have had a couple people who in certain prefectures got called a little sooner than we would have expected.
Right.
So I wouldn't do it too far in advance, but you definitely.
I was a week from.
Yeah, she was a week or 2, and she knew she'd be there for longer.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a little something you can do. So how long from when you validated to when you got called?
For the medical appointment?
Yeah, that's usually the first one you get.
And this was something I was worried about, because I knew it was going to be a while.
Yeah.
And I really had to let go and stop worrying about it, because, I got to France in August. I validated my visa end of September.
Okay.
And I had a trip to the U.S. planned for Christmas to go back and see my kids.
Yeah.
And I was worried that it was going to come during that trip. It would be scheduled when I'd be gone.
You're like,
and I just had to go, well, it'll come when it comes, and I will get it, and it'll all be fine.
This is a theme when you move to France. You just kind of trust. It's going to work out. It's going to be okay.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But really, I think it was a call with you and Jason that I had done in September after getting here, and Jason kind of talking me off that ledge, that he's like, don't worry, it'll be fine.
Right.
And like, I could still hear him saying that. Like, I needed to hear that at that time. Because I'm like, I'm going to get this wrong. They're going to kick me out. Like, I was so afraid of like breaking a rule.
Yeah.
And I kind of just had to let that go and realize that actually, yes, there are a lot of things to do, and you have to make sure that you check all of the boxes, but there's just not, anything to worry about. It
usually works itself out. You just keep doing your things, and
And the letter did come when I was in the U.S.
Oh, it did?
Yep.
I didn't know this.
Yes, it came the week before Christmas. But my medical appointment was in January, so I was back
okay.
here. Yeah, it was fine.
So kind of your worst fear did happen, but it ended up being fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
And I should note that if you were to get it and she would have been in the U.S., you can call and reschedule one time. And they will tell you the new date. You will not be able to pick it. But But if it's something like that, like I'm out of the country, I cannot come. Yeah. You can reschedule it once. Yeah. So there would be a solution even if that had been the case.
Yeah. Well, and I've had to do that with my integration days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I have a trip to the U.S. coming up this weekend. My youngest is graduating, so I'm going home for graduation. And I have my 4th prefecture day visit that needed to be scheduled. But it couldn't be scheduled until I completed my 3rd, which I just did on Monday. So, but I was told during the days, just email and they'll help you coordinate it. So I did. I emailed, explained the situation. I have this trip back to the U.S., but I need to schedule my 4th day before
before your renewal, right?
The date that my renewal has to be submitted, which is in June. It's coming up.
Yeah.
And there were like, we can't schedule you until you complete your 3rd day. So I reached back out yesterday. And then they replied this morning and said, we've got this day.
That's so fast.
Will this work for you? Or we can put you on the list for the next one. And I'm like, no, that's fine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know, like, I personally have been amazed at the responsiveness of most of the French administration when we've had a problem. I know that doesn't happen universally.
They reply to email.
I know.
Reply to email.
Yeah.
Because...
No, it needs to be in French. Do not send them an English email.
Exactly. No.
But
because at my medical appointment, the doctor had said you should hear in a couple of weeks, and I didn't hear. That was in January.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear, and by the middle of March, I'm like, I kind of need to get this going.
Right.
And so one day I had a chat with myself and reminded myself that it was okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I looked up the address to the Agen prefecture and sent an email, and I will tell you, by that afternoon I had my letter. They sent it on the email.
My gosh.
Here you go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's this kind of fine line. Sometimes I think there's this feeling that like you don't want to be impatient. You don't want to be the impatient American. And I do think there's a reasonable amount of time that you want to let go. But also there's nothing wrong with at some point after about, I think there is a certain point after 3 or 4 months where you're like,
yeah. Because I could not and would not have done that in February.
Right, yeah.
Because I would have rightly so, I think, been met with a,
like, just hang on, lady.
Yeah, there's a process. You're in process. Just, yeah.
So, okay, so that's super reassuring, I think.
Yeah.
And so you got those by email?
I got them by email.
Okay, so this is another thing is like gradually a lot of prefectures are switching to emailing these convocations, which is a super big relief.
They come by mail as well.
But so you got both.
And if you make sure that because at this point you should have a French phone number, if you give the prefecture your phone number, they will also text you.
Okay. So I don't know if that's universal or not.
Okay.
But
Bordeaux is doing it,
right,
and La Tagaron is doing it.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. This is a question for Jason. He knows all the like prefecture visa things. But yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Oh, so but mail, that's where I was going with that, is like, so how do you, because this was a big, we're going to come back to where she was outside of Nice here in a second. But while we're on this tact of like receiving convocations and mail, because you also like needed to get things for your bank and things for registering your car, how did you deal with mail?
So I consider myself a little lucky that because I was setting up a French corporation, a SASU, I domiciled my corporation in Paris, which effectively means that my company can receive mail in Paris and at that domicile, and I, as the owner of the single shareholder of that company, also can receive mail. So I put in a forwarding order when I left Lausanne. I put in a forwarding order
With the post office.
with
La Poste.
Okay. Which you can do online on the La Poste app.
Did they ask you to prove anything that you were a resident of that? No.
I had to pay for the forwarding order.
Yeah, we did too.
Like 90 euros for the year.
Yeah, it's more expensive than we're used to in the US.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of surprised. Jason and I had to show up at La Poste when we did this and show them.
You're right.
We had to show them we had a utility bill.
I had to take my passport down.
Okay, yeah, because usually they want to verify. So usually you do it online, you pay online with La Poste to forward your mail, and then you're going to have to go to La Poste and like prove,
and verify who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you were able to receive mail. So you made sure the place you validated, you were able to receive mail in Lausanne. And then when you were ready to move on, you had the mail forwarded to the commercial. It's like a commercial company that can receive.
Domicilier.
I don't know how to say it.
Oh my gosh.
We'll put the fish you used if you have a business in the thing.
Yeah.
But we were able to do that too, even as like personally. And we actually found there's not a lot of like the commercial PO boxes in France, but like in a big city, you can find one. We found one in Bordeaux, like a mailbox, etc. Yeah, and we had ours forwarded there. I would not say the service was not amazing, but it was still a place that like that mail could go while we were traveling.
Because the domicilier company that I'm using, like, they won't take auto entrepreneurs or micro entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be like a corporate
corporation
structure. And like, I had to load my corporate registration documents to their website. Like, there's a whole process to go through to do that. And then they give you documents that also go, because my domiciliation address gets registered with the court. When the company is set up. Yeah.
So you cannot, like, I want to note that this was not, she could not use this address, and we couldn't either, like the commercial PO box, like to register your visa. No. Like it has to be a physical residential address. Correct. But you can have mail forwarded to those. So, which I think this is a good strategy if you want to do this travel thing for the year. Make sure you're not going to miss things. Is like be in someplace long enough that you can settle in a bit, establish some things, and then get the mail forwarded from there to a commercial PO box for the year. So you have a place to like check in, and they can forward things on to you if you need them. So, okay. And then, so actually I want to touch on for a second though, because you opened a bank account while you were in Lausanne.
I did.
And I wasn't planning to ask about this, but bank accounts are hot topics. And I just want you to talk about like what the experience of that was like. How hard was it? Like, just tell me like what was.
I loved it. I have to tell you. I read on the internet all the horror stories that people go through. And like literally, the local bank, I had looked up on their website and found the email address.
Yep.
And so I emailed in French that I was, here, I had moved here, I had this visa, like, and I needed to open an account.
Yeah.
And could I make a rendezvous to open the account? And I got a reply in an hour or so.
Wow.
And they're like, sure, can you come on this day at this time? And it was like 3 weeks out.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. And then I emailed back and said, would it be possible for you to give me a list of the documents that I need to bring?
Yes.
And so they emailed me back the list of the documents.
Yep.
And so I made sure I had them all.
Yeah.
Like I needed to prove my address, and I needed to prove it like an attestation of domicile, which I did through renter's insurance.
Okay. Yep.
And then I needed my passport, my visa, and all of that stuff.
Okay.
And then I needed to take a copy of my U.S. tax return to prove my U.S. Social Security number.
Oh, interesting.
Because I was opening it before tax residency was established in France.
Oh, so maybe bring your most recent tax return with you. I had not.
Definitely.
You know what? And I think we used it for a couple of things too. Gosh, I don't know if I've ever added that to
because
my
I
list of
hadn't
documents
brought
to
it with
bring.
me.
Oh, how'd you get it?
I had a friend of mine who helps with my storage back in the U.S. He's run there a few times.
We
for
get
me.
by with a little help from our friends.
Exactly,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly. He went and got it out and scanned it in and sent it to me. So
Okay.
yeah. So we processed everything at that point, and then I had my account number, but I couldn't put money in yet.
Really?
There was some issue with the online account being available, and because of the security, because you get this secure pass thing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, secure pass.
Yes.
Wasn't. She's like, the bank's gonna text you your secure pass number, and I'm like, but I'm not getting that text.
I don't want to get too off track here, people, but let me just tell you, I feel very secure with my bank account in France.
Yes.
There are layers and layers of security, so much so that sometimes I can barely get into my bank account. Yeah. But anyway, okay, but the thing I want to take away from that is that you just approached the local bank and said, here's my situation, can I get an appointment?
Yeah.
And then you went.
And I went. And I feel like out of that, that person, Madame Libert, she knows me. She's my personal banker. Yeah. I have her email. When something comes up, I email her. At the time I opened my account, I didn't think I would need any checks. Who writes checks anymore? Duh.
People in France.
I needed to write a check to send in the documents to register Paolo's chip.
Oh,
and I needed to be able to write a check. So I'm like, I have my banker lady. Yeah. So I emailed her, and she's like, I'll order them for you. And then she messaged me that my checks were available to pick up.
It is. So, I feel like it's like when I was a kid, when my parents had a banker at our local bank in Greenville. Because it is the same way when we were in St. Foy, we had a banker. Yeah. And when I would email, she knew me. Yeah. I was like, this is like back in different times. I want to go back to, we're currently at...
in Concermaire. And I get my days in Agen.
And you get your days in Agen. So how did you manage that?
After a moment of panic, I'm like,
Because you're 7 hours away.
Because I'm 7 hours away. And I immediately checked, could I get there by train? And it was going to be about 7 hours door to door by train. I have Paolo to think about.
Right.
I hadn't found a boarding situation in Concermaire. I didn't think I was going to need one. So I ended up doing the easiest thing for me, although there was some effort, obviously. While keeping my Airbnb in Concermaire and all of my stuff there, I booked an Airbnb in Agen within walking distance to where the prefecture appointment was. And Paolo and I just drove to Agen the day before I needed to be there.
Overnight bag and head out.
Yeah. Because again, my work day turned kind of upside down when I moved here.
Yeah.
I work with clients in North America. So my workday starts around 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening here, and I work until midnight, and I don't work any later than that, but I work until midnight. And so we got up early the day before and drove to Agen, had a lovely drive across the French country, and all of the auto routes I am very familiar,
yes.
you know, with how to navigate toll booths and all of the like.
They're great too. Like they're hardly ever
fantastic.
crowded. There's nice rest stops. I mean,
They're wonderful
Yeah.
places
Really
to stop.
nice.
They're always clean. Like
you can get actual good food. There's
Fantastic
places to
food.
stop. It's like
Yeah.
it's completely different than like truck stop life in the U.S. yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you just packed up, drove before your workday started.
Yep.
Got to Agen.
Got to Agen, got checked in to
Yep.
the Airbnb there, worked for the evening, went to the prefecture the next day. Thank you to the long French lunch hours. I walked back to the Airbnb, took Paolo out for a nice long walk over lunch, and then went back for the afternoon, and then worked my evening that evening, and then drove back to Concermer the next day. It would have been great if my prefecture days were back to back, and I only had to do that once, but of course they were a week apart, so
I don't
had
know
to do
anybody
that.
who's
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the thing I think people worry about a lot, particularly if you're working, right? Is how you're going to coordinate all this. And unfortunately, if you really want to travel the first year, I don't know that there's a good answer. You end up just working around it. And I think what you just said about like just accepting that sometimes you're going to end up in these situations, you may end up paying for like, it's kind of like when you're always paying for your house, but if you go on vacation, you pay for a hotel. Sometimes, but for some reason our mindset shifts when we're here. We're like, I can't be paying for two places at night.
Oh, I long since got over that.
So
to make
like
my life easy.
The idea that sometimes you may keep a home base. That your stuff is at, that like, so you don't have to pack everything up and move to a place, and then you may still travel to somewhere for a few days, take care of some admin or do something, and then come back.
The other thing I think that I've done that has made this easy for me is I have gotten a stockage, which is a storage unit.
They do exist here.
They do exist. My stockage here is amazing.
Oh,
clean.
We have
and
to give
it's a third of the price that I pay for my storage unit in the U.S. Which is really like, I really want to empty that one out and ship things over, which I'm going to do in this next
I have to give a shout out because it's so good.
Please
we used
do.
it too. It's what is it called?
Miramont stockage.
Miramont stockage. Okay, he did not. This is not a sponsored video, but so nice. It's so clean. It's so easy. It's so like I know. The first summer when we traveled the whole summer, we were trying to pack the car, and I don't know how we accumulated so much stuff the first 10 months we were here, but like we bought a printer because we had outdoor toys because Juliana had friends. I mean, like we just had stuff, and I did get rid of a few things, but like there was things that now we had started to accumulate for our French life that I don't want to get rid of. So we got a little closet. It's stockage. It was great, and we just stuck it in there, and it was like a weight lifted. So storage units do exist in France. They are more rare than in the U.S., but you can find them, and it
just makes things so much easier.
Because packing and unpacking the car.
Well, and you have like in coming from San Diego, we kind of have 2 seasons, but almost only one. But here kind of have 4 seasons. Or at least 2. And so I find that I have winter clothes now and summer clothes. And so when I was making the move to go, technically when we were going to go from Surrey to Concermer, that was when my cultural appointment, where you sign the cultural contract and take the language test at the prefecture, which for me that was going to be in Bordeaux, that got scheduled. And so in that case, I left Surrey a day early, and I came back up here and, kind of dropped off some winter things into storage. And then I drove to Bordeaux, stayed the weekend in Bordeaux, went to that appointment, and then drove
Yeah.
to Nice. I have literally crisscrossed this country.
You literally
So
have. This
many
is why we
times.
wanted to talk
So
about
many
this today.
times.
But I hadn't thought, like, having a home base for seasonal clothing and things like that. I
It's
hadn't
just
even
made
thought
it
about that.
so
but
much
yeah,
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
this time when I'm going back to the US, I'm opting this time to not even keep an Airbnb.
Yeah.
I'm just sticking all of my things. I went and got some storage containers, unpacked my suitcases
Yeah.
into those, and I'm traveling home with 3 empty suitcases because they're
to
going to
bring
come
us
back
there.
full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a really good tip. Like, you know, we've talked about managing mail, which is a big concern. We've talked about managing, like, kind of a place as you accumulate a few
Yeah.
things. Another one is, like, are there any other tips for, like, the changeovers and, like, as you move from place to place that you want to share?
So don't move on a Sunday would be the first thing.
Yeah. Why?
Well, because everything is closed on Sunday, and it's
true.
just, you know. But so I tend to make my moves on Saturday, but I still plan. The fact that, especially if I'm going long distance and I'm not going to get there till late in the afternoon and check in, like, will I have time to get to the grocery store?
Oh, before it closes at probably like 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before it closes. And I'm also considering I'm moving into a place. I've got to unload my car.
Yeah.
Because as in most places, you wouldn't walk away from your car with all your worldly possessions in it,
Yeah.
loaded. So when I get to a place, I unload everything.
Yep.
And then there's also Paolo to consider, like, where are we in his schedule of food and needing to go for a walk after
Yeah.
being in the car for 6 hours. And then he's in a new place. So I don't necessarily want to, like, leave him and, I'm going to run out to the grocery store and be gone for an hour. And you know. So I got a cooler bag from Leclerc months and months ago. And I typically, in the place that I'm in before I leave it, I buy a couple of days worth of groceries, put it in the cooler bag the day we leave. And that way, when I get to the new place, I know we've got food to get us through a couple of days. Yeah.
Because then you're already in a place too where you're familiar with where to go shopping and what's there.
Exactly.
And then you're just like, once
Yeah.
you get to the new place,
Yeah.
you can unpack and take care of Paula. You've already got food.
Yes.
You don't need to think about it.
Exactly.
That's and then you don't have to throw away the bottle of mustard that you just bought.
Exactly.
Oh, the summer we traveled all over, we didn't do that, and it killed me every time I had
Every
to
time you
toss.
had to throw one out.
Dude,
Yeah.
like it was, and if we were going a short distance, we could take a few things with us. But days we were going further, you're like, there goes that butter.
Yeah.
So
I bought a cooler bag and a couple of those things you toss in the freezer, freeze things.
Yeah. Okay. So what things in each place did you like? What things were you looking for? What things did you do to see if it was the place? What things like immediately crossed someplace off? Like, how did you think about that?
And this has really kind of evolved over time. First and foremost, and I know this is really kind of esoteric, it's how a place feels to me.
Yeah, there's something about that.
There is something about the way a place feels.
Yeah.
You know, it was hard for me to leave Lausanne or leave Périgueux, because, like, I developed connections and friendships there.
Yeah.
Even though
those can matter as much as the place.
Even though it's like I struggle because I want to be near the water.
Yeah.
But now I have people here.
Oh, it's hard because it's not quite the environment.
Yeah.
But there's relationships. That's tough.
Yeah. So then I find, like, what are the ways that I can develop connections and community in a place where I want to be?
Yeah.
Is kind of the forefront in my mind right now.
So that's a really good question. Because, like, so then if you're doing this traveling thing, would you tell people to try to, like, reach out and be parts of expat groups and things when they're in each place because that will give them a better picture? Or do you think then it's harder to choose based on the environment?
So I can just tell you what I've done when I've gotten to a place. If I've really known that place like wasn't for me, I didn't choose to reach out and try to meet people.
You already know.
Because I already know
this is not a possibility.
And all that's going to do is, if I find people I like, which typically in most places I do, like, it's going to be harder to leave.
Okay.
It made leaving Paraguay very hard.
Yeah.
Because of the friendships that I had there.
And Paraguay is not by the sea, so
it is not by the sea.
Yeah.
It's not by the sea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do think people will sometimes avoid connecting if they know they're not going to be in a place very long. And it sounds like to some degree it does give you some conflicted feelings, but at the same time, it also sounds like those relationships have really enriched your time here.
It is true, and it makes it hard because as I drove back here, as I was driving and leaving Concermer, and I'm kind of driving past the area of the Verdun Gorge and the area of Carcaon, where I started, and Hier, which is a bigger town right next door. Like, I love that area. I love the feel of that area. It has this very relaxed Mediterranean vibe. It's not overrun with tourists. But you're not going to find many English speakers there. Like, certainly in the sort of Concermer, tons. As I went past there driving thinking, okay, I think I'm down to 2 places. I'm down to 1 place yet that I haven't gone.
Yeah.
And that place.
Yeah.
And then as I got here and I got settled in, and I messaged you, and we were going to get together for coffee, and I'm messaging the ladies in Paraguay. I'm like, crap, like, I
know.
Pardon my
no, it's true.
It's like, my
tough.
people.
It is.
you know? Yeah.
Like, there's something about, people do make a place.
Right. It's true. Like, I went to get my hair done yesterday because my hair lady is here, and it is for those of us with a lot of hair,
that can be.
It's a thing to find your right person.
Course. Yes.
I have crisscrossed this country
to come back
here to see Joanne to get my hair done.
Yeah.
Yes. She was part of that trek that day from Surrey up to here
to get your hair done,
to get my hair done, and then go to Bordeaux to the prefecture.
It's a real thing. But I think what this also means is, like, if you do land in a place, like if you're doing this from scratch and you land in a place and you really like it, immediately try to make those relationships. Yeah. Because then you can find out, are there people here that I can connect with, right? Yeah. Because if there's not, and I know relationships take time, but sometimes you can find, like, I mean, this is why I'm always like the both and, right? You want expat relationships and French relationships, but because the expat relationships can just happen faster.
Yeah, they're easier.
And you can get a feel, I think, for, like, because what if you don't jive? And then you think, like, gosh, unless, and Renee's French is actually pretty good. She doesn't give herself enough credit. Yeah. But, like, because that group might, then you know, right? Okay, I like the way this feels, but there may not be people for me to hang out with for a little while, right? Like, you're going to have to work harder to build those more relationships. Time,
because even that first month when I was in Carcaon, I did not hear English from the time I landed until the day I got to Lausanne.
Wow.
No English.
Wow.
And
which I think most people will tell us that's what they're looking for. They want to integrate.
And it was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, I met people in Carcaon. Typically what would happen is I would notice a difference. I'm taking Pella for walks every day. We're out walking around the village. Kind of the second week, people would look at me different, like, oh, you're still here. You know?
Yeah.
And then they would say something. And they would
And these are local French people living around you.
Local French people would ask me something in French. And typically it was about Paolo. And, like, so we would end up conversing about Paolo. I'd tell the breed.
Dogs
and
are a great way to meet people.
How old he was. Great icebreaker. And
better icebreaker than children, honestly.
Oh, no. Definitely. And then one day, he and I were walking through the park, and we rounded a corner, and here's a woman with another Italian greyhound.
Oh!
And she saw Paolo.
One of my guys!
And she comes running towards us.
So sweet.
And we ended up meeting her twice and met her husband, and they spoke no English, but we got through like broken French conversation, and I met people asking for directions, and so it starts to shift when you're in a place a little bit longer. Like, I don't feel like there's any place that I have been so far that over time I wouldn't be able to be happy and contented and have community there. Yeah. Because the French, if you give them a little bit of time, they open up and warm up, and they are lovely.
Yeah. It's funny, as soon as you said that, I felt emotional, because I felt that, like, everywhere we've been, and I, like, feel so grateful, you know, for, like, that warmth and that welcome that I felt. You know. Jesus!
This country is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's the country itself is amazing. The culture is amazing. But really, it's the French people.
It's the people, yeah.
That, like, to me, made it a place that, like, I was like, I don't want to go home.
Yeah.
You know, there's...
Yeah.
So, okay,
it's ingrained, though, in their culture. It's ingrained in the motto of the country.
Yeah.
That there's such a respect for other humans. And and there's no classifications and things like that. It's just respect for other humans.
I agree. I think that's, like, at the core. And maybe like for our French viewers, y'all might not even realize that how much someone from the outside sees that in, like, daily small things. That it's so normal to you. Like, our French friends that are like, c'est normal. When I thank them for things, they're like, c'est normal. Like, why are you saying this?
Exactly.
But, okay. So, like, so that was a place where, you know, you were definitely, like, fully kind of immersed in, like, daily, like, it was all French. And then you went to a place, Lauzon's got a ton of English speakers.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, like...
I went from no social life to beaucoup de social life.
So what was that? How did that feel different? Like, how was the kind of adaptation process there?
Well, that first day after I unloaded the car... and lugged everything up the flight of stairs on the 18th century. Actually, those stairs were probably older than that.
Oh, I can.
The creakiest, windiest things. After I got everything up there, Paolo and I went out for a walk to explore the village, which did not take very long.
It's little. You guys saw the video.
And and I turned the corner on the one street, and it's in that moment I hear English for the first time after being here.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And those English speakers turned out to be the owners of the cafe.
Oh, this is a famous cafe in Lauzon.
Yeah, the Rendezvous Cafe.
Yep.
Yes, Keith and Liza, who are absolutely lovely. Again, not sponsored, but
I know we've given lots of shout outs on this video.
Go there, they're amazing. If you haven't tried, I tried.
We haven't actually been there.
I tried to eat super healthy, but if you go there, order her French fries. They are amazing.
Okay, so you went there. I think this is where you're going before we got distracted. But so you went to the cafe, and did you just feel quickly welcomed there? Or?
This was my learn the lesson, don't move on a Sunday, because I got there on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So everything was closed, but they live above the cafe. So they were outside chatting with some other folks on the street. And I noticed, and obviously they noticed, new person in town. Of the 700 people that lived there. And so I ended up saying hello to them, and just made a connection. And then I went there for coffee, and one day Keith's like, you can come for dinner. come here for dinner. I'll place you at a table with some other folks and you'll meet some people.
You're kidding me.
And that's what he did.
Oh my gosh.
It was fantastic.
Wow.
It was fantastic. So I met other people and I made connections, shared phone numbers, that way we're, messaging and coordinating dog walks with other people. I met other people that way.
Yeah. I think that is the beauty of a little expat group, right? It's just like it's just so people are experiencing similar things as you. They're like, and so it's just quick to plug into and have have a social life.
Yeah. Yes. And I still remember one day I needed something at La Poste and the woman in La Poste spoke no English, and which obviously expected. And I prepared for the conversation as you do with all things. I'm like preparing for what I need and what I'm going to ask for. And I got a few phrases in and she said something to me and I could not understand what she was saying. Yeah. And pretty soon she's doing this to me as a signal to follow her because La Poste is right next to the Rendezvous Cafe. We go over to the Rendezvous and grab Keith, and Keith does because he speaks fluent French. And so
these are the gosh, I know there's so many pros and cons, and we were joking when we were in Paris this last weekend. I was like, when I'm in Paris, I'm like, I love Paris, I want to live in Paris. When we're in Bordeaux, I'm like, I love Bordeaux, I want to live in Bordeaux. And then we get home to our house and I'm like, I love Ame, I'm never leaving, right? So it doesn't matter where I am in France, it's where I think I want to live, I feel like. But that kind of experience where the La Poste lady is like, hold on, let's go get the neighbor and we'll figure this out together. That has been my experience in the countryside over and over is that you figure it out together, whatever, and not even just those kind of things like an English, French thing, but just in general, it's so, I genuinely feel like it is when I lived out in the country in Texas when I was a kid. It's just a different, people just, I don't know.
Everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere. I had it even in Consumer. I was mailing my very first French taxes, and I needed to mail them the equivalent of certified mail. Yeah. And I went to the there was kind of a little La Poste in the local epicerie.
Oh yeah.
And,
I have those
sometimes. And so I'm trying to,
and epicerie is a little grocery store, by the way. Yeah.
I'm trying to ask for sending this certified, which he got. But I didn't have an envelope. I needed to buy an envelope. And he could not understand why I would want to pay for this envelope and pay for the certified mail. To him, that was too much money to spend to send this. Yeah. And finally, we're going back and forth trying to figure it out, and I'm not understanding. And then suddenly I realized that he's just not wanting to charge me for both the envelope and
I cannot tell you how many times that French officials or people have tried to save us money. Yeah. And we're like, everywhere. Wait, what? We don't get it. And then we're like, oh.
Everywhere.
There's a real conscientiousness of using your funds wisely. And carefully. And I appreciate that. It's I've had many of the opposite experiences in the U.S.
Yeah. Yes.
So, okay. So I know we've been talking for a long time because oh my God, no, thank you. Yeah. What I mean is just there's just so much to explore here because it's a big thing to decide to move so much because it's a lot of energy already, I think, to move your whole life. Yeah. And then to just kind of keep moving. Most of us have not done that ever in our lives in that way, to kind of be a nomad and a nomad with a job, a business, a dog, right. Yeah. In a foreign country. Yeah. And, it's just a lot. So I think I want to wrap up with two things. One is just anything that you want to leave people with. And also, first let's say, do you think it's been worth it to do it this way? And then I want to leave people with any advice for them. Do you think it's been worth it?
It's totally been worth it. Yeah. I mean, I have given myself a deadline to choose my place because I feel one could easily spend the next 30 years exploring French villages.
Yes.
Like there's over 35,000 French villages.
There is.
And I feel like they would all be lovely.
Yeah. Well, you said something earlier that I find fascinating, which is you said, I actually think every place that I've been, I could make a home there if I wanted. And I want you to find that reassuring, those of you who are watching, which is that, like, this is, there may be one place that feels a little bit better fit, but I think there's a lot of good places in France. It's going to be really hard to really go wrong, I think.
Yes. I definitely agree.
If you're coming here because you love France. Okay, so it's been worth it. You feel like you could spend forever, but you're setting a deadline.
Yes, I'm setting a deadline to find my place.
Okay.
Only for the reason that, like, I want to get about living in France and building my life in France and making those connections and knowing that I'm not going to leave them.
Yes. Yeah. It's big.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like, if someone is thinking about approaching their move to France this way with, like, an exploratory first few months or year, like, what do you want them to walk away from this conversation with? What are the words of wisdom?
Probably the biggest words of wisdom that I would have is to consider being open to allowing France to change you, because it will if you allow it. I was type A workaholic, like very productive, very driven, and France has slowed me down. France has given my life space and openness and the room to be much more present with myself and with everything. So yeah, allow it to change you, because it will. Yeah.
It's a beautiful note to leave on.
Thank you.
I think it's really, I think it's true. I feel that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for watching. And do you want to sign us off since Jason's not here?
Yeah. A bientôt.